All right, let's get started back up again. Try to,
Make it two, you specify, make it two. All the vegetables. Keep it simple. I'm a sub roll.
try to stay ahead of the curve here if we can.
Sorry, didn't mean to elbow you.
All right, so our second lesson of this module is dealing with building construction classification. I had mentioned earlier, important things. Second item on my list of answering any questions from code officials, fire chiefs, building owners, architects, engineers. First, what do we have for an occupancy, right? What is our occupancy? What are we dealing with by definition? And then second, how is the building constructed? And the construction type of the building is super, super important for us because then it leads us down different paths. So we'll talk about the classification in the codes. We'll talk about the fire ratings and the construction of the building. And then we're gonna talk about how to use the life safety code with specific occupancies. This is starting to get into the meat and potatoes of using the book and going down the various paths to get to where we need to be. Figuring out what you have for an occupancy, figuring out what you have for a construction type, allows you to figure out the allowable type of construction determined by whether it's the building codes or whether it's the life safety codes. It's super important because not every construction type can be used for a specific occupancy, or you're limited by the occupancy and the construction type on number of floors that you can have. Okay, so we can't just have a 15-story wood frame building for, an assembly occupancy or a healthcare occupancy or a daycare occupancy. Or you may have to have, if you do have that kind of a situation, you may have to have other fire protection features in place. So they're the starting points. My checklist that I provide all of my staff when they first start, first thing, what kind of occupancy do we have? Figure that out. What kind of construction type do we have? And then how many stories are there? From there, we're gonna go, once we get the construction type, table 1.6 in every occupancy chapter that is applicable is gonna tell us whether they can or cannot do what they're trying to do. We'll practice that. We'll go down through, do a few things. And then rating a separation determined by use and applicable code requirements. May have to have specific ratings, specific separations. Do we want to have a daycare right next to a fireworks store? If we do, what's our rated separation requirements? We want to protect the kiddos in the daycare from anything that could happen at the fireworks store. Okay, so for those of you that are in the building code world, table 508.4, just separation requirements. For us in NFPA, table 6114.41, either A or B. Those tables are very, very important. I will tell you to highlight those tables in your book. Okay, that is a tab. I brought my other book back, but that is a tab that I can just go like this and open right up to every single time, because it's important to have that tab in place. It's important to know that. So NFPA 220, it's not part of this code set that we're dealing with for the fire inspector class, but it's important to know NFPA 220. It's important to be able to find it and reference it. There are tables within both NFPA 1 and 101 that reference the NFPA 220. NFPA 220 is a standard all on its own, it's standalone. But it defines types of building construction based on the combustibility, fire resistance rating of a building and structural elements. If we have a steel building, masonry buildings, those are all non-combustible type buildings. If we have wood, brick, masonry, A combination of wood, brick masonry, and stick built, those are combustible type construction. So NFPA 220, if you were to take the plans examiner certification, NFPA 220 is a standard that is part of your code set. So you're gonna use NFPA 1, 101, 220, and a couple others. But 220 does not include anything relative to firewalls. Firewalls is NFPA 221. Okay? Doesn't include most non-bearing exterior walls. If you have an exterior wall that is non-load bearing, in a case, a lot of cases where you'll see, I won't go down that rabbit hole, but it doesn't include most non-bearing interior partitions. If that interior partition right there, that wall, is not supporting any of the structure, if it's just there to be a wall, that is non-bearing. These are bearing walls because they're bearing the weight of the roof. Okay, that is a bearing structure wall. You may have an interior wall for maybe a bathroom. Okay, that's just a partition. It's not a bearing wall, it's not load bearing. NFPA 220 doesn't include fire barriers. Again, fire barriers, fire walls, that's in NFPA 221. Doesn't include shaft enclosures. The Life Safety Code covers all of that, the shaft enclosures, and NFPA 1 as well. Doesn't include opening in walls, partition floors, and roofs. So it's 100% based on the construction only, the supporting structure of the construction. So here is one, and I know this one is in the definitions, fire resistance rating. Okay, if you find this in your definitions, super important to highlight fire resistant ratings. Super important to know how to find it. Use your index. Use your index and find fire resistance rating. It'll tell you where to go in chapter 3, definitions. And it's the time in minutes or hours that materials or assemblies have withstood fire exposure as established in accordance with test procedures of ASTM E119, standard test for methods for fire of building construction and materials, or ANSI UL 263, standard for fire tests of building construction and materials. Now, if you see ANSI UL 263, standard for fire test of building construction and materials, or you see standard test methods for fire, ASTM E119, where do you go to look that stuff up? You know, if they're telling you that you need to have this in accordance with NFPA 101 or NFPA 1, for this part we're utilizing NFPA 101, where would I go to find out what edition of these items they need to meet? Where would I go in the code book? Well, 101, we're dealing with NFPA 101 right now, the Life Safety Code.
It's the reference section.
Reference section. Where's our reference publications? Chapter 2. All of NFPA, Chapter 1, administrative, Chapter 2, reference publications, Chapter 3, definitions. Okay? So, as an example for a test question, you may find, what does ANSI UL 263 stand for? And it'll give you 4 different choices, multiple choices. If you use your chapter 2 and go looking, it's in alphabetical order, you look for ANSI UL 263 or ASTM E119. Go look for it, and that'll tell you the code set, the edition, and it'll tell you what it stands for. ASTM E119 is the test methods for fire tests of building construction and materials. So don't get stumped on a test question if you're taking the certification, don't get stumped on what it stands for. The code book tells you, chapter 2 will tell you what it stands for. All you have to do is do the easy part of looking up the ASTM E119 or the ANSI UL 263. And it'll tell you what it is and what edition, what year is referenced. That make sense? Okay. Nobody's expected to remember what all of this is. You're not gonna remember that. There's too many of them for you to remember. We'll do some practice things on this later down the road. So, here's the chart, table A 12.2.1. A, where do we find something that says A in front of it? In the annex, right? So if we go looking for A 12.2.1, it's gonna make a liar out of me there. Because they're bouncing around. So NFPA 1, table A 12.2.1 is where your table is. There is one of those tables in the life safety code as well. The exact location off the top of my head, I can't tell you. I memorize a lot of the book, but not that particular one. Because I don't have to, because I have access to NFPA 220. I have the standard itself. But this is the way the table reads, and this is how I work on classifying a building. If somebody comes to me and tells me and they explain their building and how it's constructed, this is the chart, this is the table that I use to be able to find it, figure out what it is. The way that this works, and we'll see it in the next slide or two, is exterior bearing walls, okay? This is an exterior bearing wall. It's bearing the weight of the roof, maybe another floor above it, okay? Whether it supports more than one floor, columns, or other bearing walls, or it's supporting one floor only, or just supporting a roof only. In this case, this is a single-story building, so this exterior bearing wall is only supporting the roof. Okay, so I'm gonna go across the chart on the bottom. I need to know more information about the building by the classification up here, type 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. Interior bearing walls. That wall, maybe it holds the weight of the roof trusses, so that becomes a bearing wall. Okay, supporting a roof only, I'm gonna use this line right here. Any columns? We don't have any columns in this building, or at least in this room. Beams, girders, trusses, and arches. I have beams, girders, trusses, and arches up here. Okay, supporting the roofs only. I'm gonna use this. Floor ceiling assemblies. If I had a floor and a ceiling and a floor above, I would use this. Roof ceilings. Here, this is a roof ceiling, so I'm going to use this chart. Interior non-bearing and exterior non-bearing. So non-bearings, you can see whether it's interior or exterior non-bearings, there's no required ratings at all. 2-hour rating, hour and a half, 1 hour rating, 4-hour rating, 3-hour rating. That's what that means. So we'll get into these here, and then subsequently. So when I'm looking at a type in this case, a type 1 construction, it says 442 there, but 443 here. It's telling me that my construction type, we'll learn about that in a second, my exterior walls, 4 hour, the primary structural frame, 4 hours, and then the floor construction, 3 hours. Okay? So type 1, fire resistive. Exterior walls, 4 hours, structural frame, 4 hours, floor construction, 3 hours. So NFPA uses 2 categories, non-combustible and combustible. It's broken down in non-combustible, things that do not burn, type 1 and type 2 buildings. Then they break them down into 442, 332, 222, 111, 000. Those are your fire resistive ratings. A type 2, 000 building is a non-combustible building that has no fire resistive ratings whatsoever. A type 2 is a non-combustible building that has 1 hour ratings. So if I have a type 2 building, this building is a type 2 building, consider it a type 2 building, maybe it's a metal building, and my walls are labeled as 222, or the construction type is labeled as 222, that's gonna tell me that my exterior walls have a 2 hour rating, the framework holding everything up has a 2 hour rating, and if there's a floor above, that also has a 2 hour rating. Type 2, 222. So then we get into combustible construction, type 3. Anybody in the fire service ever rolled up on scene? I have, I arriving on scene, doing their size up. I have a ordinary construction building. You hear that term a lot. Ordinary construction is a type 3 constructed building. Most of your downtown buildings here in the state of Maine, Water Street in Augusta, that's City of Lewiston, Elizabeth Street in Lewiston, are type 3 buildings. They're constructed with masonry and wood. Okay, wood framing with brick on the outside of it. The floors and ceilings are all wood. That is an ordinary type 3 constructed building. They're brick on the outside, hence the 2 hour fire resistive rating on the outside. Everything else depends on how they've constructed it. Then we have type 4 2HH, heavy timber. We're gonna go through each individual one so you can see examples. So if you're not fully understanding, it's okay. We'll get there. But the H in the 2HH represents the heavy timber. Very few buildings actually meet a type 4 requirement. I have people all the time, I've got big beams, so it's a type 4. Not necessarily. Most of your mill structures, your old mill structures, are type 4 heavy construction, heavy timber. And then we have type 5. That's your general everyday stick-built wood frame building. Your house is a type 5, 000 construction. What makes it a 111 construction is 5/8 sheetrock. Okay? Most of the time, you go to your house, you build a house, you're not using 5/8 fire rock sheetrock. You know, you're saving money. You're not doing a hard pan 5/8 fire code sheetrock on the ceilings. So most of your sheetrock is just, maybe you're doing 5/8, but it's not fire rated. But for the most part, you're doing 1/2 inch sheetrock. So there's no fire resistive rating at all. There are certain occupancies that require that type 111, that 5/8 sheetrock. Protect your structure, protect your exterior walls. So we'll talk about each individual one here shortly. So when we're defining what type of construction we're dealing with, the definitions are found in the codes and standards. NFPA 220, the standard itself, will explain exactly all of the elements. It's gotta be fire resistive rated here, it has to be fire resistive rated here, it's non-combustible, it's combustible. It labels it all out. Heavy timber, 2HH, it tells you the size of the beams, what size those beams absolutely have to be, the thickness of the floors, how thick the floors have to be, the thickness of the ceiling, or the roof, I'm sorry, how thick the roof actually has to be. So we had, just not too long ago, we had a hospital, northern Maine, northern western Maine, that was undergoing construction. And they decided that they wanted to build, kind of like here, you exit out of the main entrance of the building, they wanted to build a roof structure. And that roof structure, they kind of wanted to look pretty, you know, for this new hospital, this new addition. And they constructed it, it was designed as a heavy timber type construction. It's okay, that was acceptable to do, it met the requirements of the code. But when we went to do the inspection, we started looking at things, beams and columns, supporting structure, everything met, but the roof, they put just regular plywood, 3/4 plywood on the roof. NFPA 220 is very specific. You have to have a minimum thickness of at least 2.5 to 3 inches for the roof structure. Regular sheathing doesn't meet that requirement. So the construction type no longer met the requirement. Now they moved down, all the way down to a type 5000, no fire resistant rating structure. And when they did that, a hospital cannot be constructed with a type 5000 construction. So it completely screwed up everything for the hospital. They had to scramble big time in order to make that meet. So they ended up having to have special wood brought in and redo the roof so they had that thickness, so they met the construction type. So you do have to be careful with construction type and all the implications that happens there. And with the hospital, we'll talk about different types of construction later, but with the hospital, that actually reclassified the entire hospital as a type 5, as the most least resistive or least restrictive construction type for the entire building. Okay, so it completely threw everything off the entire hospital. That affects their funding. Hospitals get funded based on passing the life safety code. Okay, there's a lot of things that could happen there. Fire protection handbook. Anybody who wants to pursue becoming a fire protection specialist, the fire protection handbook is a series of 3 books that are like 1,000 pages each, and that's what your test is based on. No specific, you don't have tabs, you don't have all of that stuff. So it's quite a test, but there's a lot of good information in that fire protection handbook. You can find things in the UL Fire Resistance Directory. We were kind of looking at that. I was trying to log in on that. The FM approval guide, Factory Mutual, they're an insurance company. Factory Mutual does a lot of things. They do sprinkler designs. They have a lot of valuable information. They kind of fly by the seat of their own pants. NFPA 914, the code for fire protection in historic buildings. That is a very unique and sometimes underused code. And it's specifically for those historic buildings. I know when I was in the industry doing my contract work, go to the city of Portland and try to do a project in a historic building, and drilling a hole for plumbing, or I was installing. I also owned a fire extinguisher company and did hoods, NFPA 96 suppression hoods. Try to drill a hole through a masonry wall with bricks in a historic building. The requirements going through historical societies and all the preservations and everything else, they want you to save every last brick that you possibly can. There are things that you can and can't do, so there's a lot. This is very, very important when you're dealing with that. So,
With historic buildings, does it have to be declared by anybody, or, I mean, what is the criteria?
it's debatable. Typically, it's something that's on a registry. So if it's on a national registry, that is what we utilize for our basis. You know, national registry, in order to utilize this here, we will accept, depending on the situation, a local registry as well. You know, so it doesn't necessarily have to be the national database, because that's a process. So local will work as well.
Can I also ask a question about
Sure.
that? Well, when you say you'll follow local, does that also apply to historic zoning?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So I deal with, you know, a fair amount of buildings in Bangor as
Right.
well. Mike Pullen, who sits on the MUBEC board, he works
Yep.
for, I can't remember the
He
name.
works for Artifacts.
Artifacts, Artifacts. Great guy, love Mike to death. He's the oldest, the longest running member next to me. I'm second to him, I should say, on the building code board. But Mike his function there is for historic preservation. That's his thing. And he does a fantastic job with it. So. Oh, look at that, didn't have to go searching on the website, but here's a UL design guide. Again, you know, here's the meat and potatoes right there, or that peanut butter and jelly sandwich I talked about. 2x6 wood studs. If somebody provides you that UL 305 1-hour rating and they're using metal studs, it doesn't meet. It has to meet. This is a prescription. Okay, just like you get a prescription to take 2 aspirin and call the doctor in the morning, you know, that's a prescription. This is a prescription. If you start going away from this, you're no longer following the prescription. That's a problem. The drawings show this. Actual real life, you didn't do this. That's a problem that we have to address. So that UL fire resistance directory provides guidance on the ratings, materials, construction, how you're gonna do it. It tells you every last bit that you need to know. And it will tell you as well. Some of them get as detailed as you'll put 1 screw every 6 inches. And the screw has to be this type of screw. Coarse thread, you know, thread number whatever, 1 5/8 inches long. It really gets down into the details. And if they don't do it that way, then they haven't met this requirement. This is a tested, when you have this UL design, UL actually has done testing. They put it in a blast furnace, they put flames on it and heat on it for a certain period of time. Then they take it out and they spray it with a hose stream at 50 PSI. They do the same thing over and over again for all the different assemblies. The process stays the same. All of the criteria remains the same, so that way it's equal. If I'm testing this product versus this product versus this product for a 1-hour rating, this is how we're gonna do it. And they're gonna be specific, just like that door manufacturer. They've tested that door this way. If you take their hardware off from that and you put some other hardware on, that's not how it was tested and approved. You haven't met the requirement of that assembly anymore. You've lost it. So our different construction types, here's where we're gonna see actual examples. So a type 1 fire resistive constructed building is typically a hospital, typically a high-rise building, okay? They are fire resistive rated. They're steel structures. Generally, the structure doesn't burn. It might melt and twist and everything else, but it's not gonna burn. Usually, in order to achieve that rating, we saw type 1, 443 or 33, or, 222. In order to achieve that on the steel, they actually have to, because steel does bend, twist, turn, expands, contracts, all of that stuff. In order to prevent that from happening, they do the spray applied fireproofing. Okay, fireproofing, all one word. Doesn't, even your computers, you know, when you're typing it, wants to separate it. Fireproofing is all one word. This is spray applied. This is a cement type product, cementatious product. You'll see that if you go do, you know, larger structure inspections. Here you can see this is a set of stairs. And the supporting framing of the building, in order to make that a, you know, type 4, type 3, type 2, whatever fire resistant rated, they have to spray this product on at a certain thickness. You have to go through, and you can see here, there's some hangers. It looks like some hanger material here. The contractors, the subcontractors go in and they start hanging pipes, ductwork, electrical work, sprinklers, you know, drainage, all of that stuff. So what do? They scrape this off. They put their beam clamp, they tighten it on, they have the threaded rod, hang their pipe or their ductwork. So once they've scraped that off, you know, now you've exposed that steel again. So that has to be patched up a little bit. They do that, and as they're doing that, they're flinging their pipes around and doing things, and they're hitting this and knocking all this spray application off. Now you've reduced the rating. So fire inspections are very important during construction like this. Eastern Maine Medical Center, when they did they built the building inside of in between all the buildings, I was there once a week, going up there for that. Maine Medical Center, we had crews there. I was there quite often, but we had crews there once a week for the Maine Medical Center 7-story building they just got done doing. And before they closed ceilings, we were inspecting that. We would inspect it once they sprayed it to make sure that they had all of the coverage. And then we'd go back before they flood the ceilings, put the ceiling tiles in, after all the contractors were done doing their work. And I can't tell you how many times, pages and pages and pages of, yep, need to fix that one, need to fix that one, need to fix that one. By the way, you didn't fix these, you know. So you have to go back through and they have to continue to patch that stuff up. If it's not patched, you have exposed steel, it creates issues. A good way to inspect this stuff, if you're looking at it, you're going through, if you can see rust, because the steel's gonna rust, trust me. If you can see rust showing through, there's not enough coverage there. If you see areas where it's knocked off, scraped off, whatever, there's not enough coverage there. They have to cover it. So important to take really good notes, because how do you do your inspection and then send something in an email to somebody of what you found and where you found it, and have them go back and find it to fix it? That is very, very difficult. So you have to be extremely specific. I don't care if you have to measure 20 feet out from the exterior wall as you're going down corridor, you know, 210, by door number, you know, 1, 2, 3, above the, you know, above the, you know, the water line piping. There's an area there. Take a picture of it, circle it, attach that to your deficiency list. But this is fire resistive construction. Still a type 2, still a steel building, but type 2 non-combustible. Still steel, doesn't burn. But we don't have the spray application fireproofing on those. Okay? A little bit different. Hard to tell that this is a steel building, but it's a steel building. This looks like a lot of your box stores that you go into. Walmart, Home Depots, Lowe's, grocery stores. Okay, this is something that's under construction. All your steel framing. You have your metal decking, or your metal bracing, I should say. Poured concrete over the top of that, most likely. non-combustible, type 2. Type 1, fire resistive. Big steel skyscrapers, hospitals are done this way. Box stores type are done that way, warehouses. Here's another example. This is actually in Maine. You called it, Scarborough area. And this is a, you know, again, series of box stores. This is a mall type structure. Type 2 non-combustible. Doesn't look like a steel building from the outside, but it is. On the inside, again, look up when you're doing your shopping at the, you know, the next time you're at Home Depot or Lowe's or Walmart. This is what you're looking at. So here's a question. Why does this construction type present a hazard to first responders? Why is that a hazard?
As it heats, it'll expand.
As it heats, it expands. Is it just me, or did that turn on and get really bright?
You all did.
Holy crap. Okay, time to wake up. What's that?
Generator test.
Oh, okay. So, it is important to understand type 2 non-combustible construction, because you're right. If a fire occurs in here, these steel beams that are holding things up, they go to the outside walls. They're big steel, they're fastened to the outside walls. As steel heats up, it expands or contracts, and it does this to the outside walls. Okay? You take that strength away, and the building's coming down, the roof's coming down. Super, super important to understand the ramifications of a hot fire that's in this building and what could happen. And what has happened. We know what happens because of, you know, loss of life. We've lost first responders in buildings like this before. So going back to type 3, mentioned it earlier, ordinary construction. Like I said, Waterville, Bangor, Lewiston, Portland, Augusta, they all have these type of buildings. We've all seen these types of buildings. Well, not so much this, but these here. They're all ordinary construction. All brick on the outside, but everything on the inside, well, everything on the inside is wood. All your partitions, all your floors, sometimes, most often the roofs, are all wood. Yes, the brick doesn't burn, but everything else does. As we can see. Okay? Church fires, all, and everybody, a lot of people think that's heavy timber construction, big church, big beams, big arches. Not necessarily. Okay? Wood roof structures, wood interior partitions, wooded stairs going up to the bell tower, whatever the case is. Type 4 heavy timber. Bates Mills in Lewiston, Warumbo Mills, Sanford Mills. They're all heavy timber construction. They were all mills, all oil soaked floors, because they had all kinds of, you know, equipment in there, manufacturing type processes. But NFPA 220 tells us these beams and columns, all have to be a certain dimension in order to meet the requirements. The thickness of the floor itself has to be a certain thickness to meet the requirements. The thickness of the roof has to be a certain thickness in order to meet the requirements. If all of those together don't meet the requirements of NFPA 220 for heavy timber, you don't have a heavy timber building. If one of those elements are missing. And then we have our type 5 lightweight construction. Stick built, regular house, residential type construction. Lightweight, because they have gusset plates. These are called gussets. They also have, you know, these things are, you know, they use different brands, but, you know, like a Simpson tie. Okay, these are big beams, micro lambs, LVLs. These are I-beams. Very, very lightweight. It's a piece of 3/4 or 1/2 inch presswood basically, with some 2x beams holding it together. Yes, they're strong, but they fail very, very quickly. At one point in time, these came out with a product on it that had our hard candy coating type product, flak jacket they were called flak jacket, but they had some issues with that. That was fire resistant rated. You know, they had a good thing going, it didn't work out. But lightweight construction, 10 minutes, roughly. You know, these gusset plates heat up, they expand, they pop off. You'll see them on the floor. And once that does, you've lost the structural integrity of, that's what's holding these 3 pieces of wood together. Those things go in 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch into the wood. That's it. Yes, they're machine pressed on, but you lose integrity of that structure very, very quickly. We already answered that question. Why does this construction present a hazard to first responders? Because these things pop and they fail and they lose their integrity, because these burn out very quickly. These, if you have it, are supposed to be protected either by sprinklers or by 1/2 inch sheetrock. Okay? How many houses do you go into that have these, that you can stand in the basement, look up and see those? I can tell you, I had a commercial building that I did the plumbing in. My last commercial plumbing job that I did, stick built. I was working here and still trying to finish the project. Big commercial building that used these and did not provide any protection of them underneath. Non-sprinkled, no sheetrock, no sheetrock. So then, of course, that puts me in a spot. You know, I'm working for my own client, knowing what the code requirements are, you know, and the tough part was the person who designed the project was also the building official, you know, so it created some sticky situations there. So, but if we see these, if they're exposed, they need to be protected. Plain and simple. Sheetrock them or put sprinklers in the building. See how thin they are? These are not full 2x4s. You can see some of these are even smaller depending on the structural integrity or what the lengths of them are. But at best, they're 1.5 by 3. These are 1.5 by 1.5. You can see here how quickly they've burned out. That doesn't take long to burn that out. And then you can see the bowing that occurs. Because once that centerpiece is gone, those 1-bys start flexing pretty quickly, whether they bow upwards or bow downwards. Here you can see the gussets popped off. You've lost your structural integrity there. The codes tell you, Chapter 24 of NFPA 101 tells you all new 1 and 2 family dwellings shall be sprinkled. The building code, the IRC tells you all new 1 and 2 family buildings shall be sprinkled. We, as the state of Maine, have removed the sprinkler requirements due to pressure, you know, because, well, it's not affordable, doesn't, you know, cost too much money, whatever the case is. We have removed it from the codes. But we didn't fix any of this. We didn't make anything more. When you take something out, you should put something back in its place, something to counter what you remove. And we didn't, we haven't, and we still continue not to.
It's funny, they require a blower door test on a building, but they won't require sprinklers. It's, to me, it's life safety versus, you know, energy efficiency, and why we go down that road and not the other is beyond me.
I'll tell you, I almost quit this job because of that. I sit on the Building and Energy Code Board, and I have to vote on all of these codes and energy requirements, and cost people $10,000 to make their houses more energy efficient, but yet we can't get sprinklers in houses. I have a soapbox about this high that I can stand on with that, you know, but it's unfortunate. Fire service, we do a disservice to ourselves. We don't promote it nearly enough. We don't band together. Fire inspectors, fire investigators, code officials, none of us do enough. And I will tell you, this round, this update that we just did, we were that close. Literally that close. We voted, we were working on creating a plan to phase it, slowly phase it in. A 5-year plan is what we were gonna do to make it required. Bring it back into the code where it's supposed to be, or where it is already written. Things happened. I can't get into any more than that, but things happened. And that changed and it all went away, and the energy code took precedence. So it's unfortunate, it really is. I won't give up the fight. I started the Maine Fire Sprinkler Coalition in the state of Maine back in 2013, and I will continue on. I don't sit on the board, I don't sit on the, in the chair, I don't chair the position. I can't, in my position here, it's kinda, I have to be careful, but I still sit in on it, I still promote it, I still, do what I can.
Wasn't Yarmouth successful in that though?
Yarmouth is successful. A lot of municipalities have adopted local ordinances. We almost lost that this legislative session as well, because lawmakers are trying to take it away from even a local municipality making it. They were trying to make it illegal to make it legal to put sprinklers in your house, at the local level.
What's home rule?
Home rule, but it's coming back. They have been very, very specific. I've sat at legislature a few times this session, and they have told us, you didn't win this one, but we're coming back again next session, stronger. We've given all kinds of ammunition. We gave them all the information out of the book and said, hey, here it is, and now they know. So now they're coming back. And I keep talking with the sprinkler industry, and I keep pushing again with other industries. Gotta band together, because if they take that away, that is not a good thing. I can tell you my 30 years in the fire service, I've pulled bodies out, you've seen bodies, you've pulled them out. It's not a pleasant place to be. I don't ever wanna have to do that again in my lifetime. I'm done with it, but until we start bringing sprinklers in, we're gonna continue doing it.
Well, it seems like just based off the science that with how fast stuff burns now, that having sprinklers required in residential structures would be a good idea.
It's a good idea, it's in the code, it's the minimum standard, the minimum requirements to build. So yeah, it's a good idea, it's a hell of an idea. It's proven, it saves lives. Everybody complains, well, it costs money, it costs a lot of money. It's a specialty item right now, because it's not in the codes. It's a specialty. If you put it back in there, you're gonna see the market settle right out. And it's gonna become, it's no different. It used to be to have a backup camera in your car. Used to be a luxury. I want a backup camera, so it's an extra $1,500 to buy that car. Sure, throw it in. You know, AM, FM stereo, radio, instead of a, you know, an 8-track, you know, throw it in, it's extra money. Seatbelts, extra money. Airbags, extra money. Throw it in, we didn't care. It's accepted, we pay for it. Now it's standard, it's part of the package. Sprinklers should be the same way. But that's, again, my soapbox, I'm done, I'll move on. So construction codes define the allowable type based on factors such as occupancy, use, numbers of stories. We'll talk about that, we'll do some practice stuff. Plans will depict the location of walls and other construction elements. Specifications will define the materials and workmanship. The fire inspector needs to understand how to field verify these elements in conjunction with the life safety code. I try not to field verify anything. Again, you prove it to me, you tell me how it meets construction type X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? Yes, can I look at a building and say, you know, the Civic Center over there, that is a, you know, type 2 fire resistive, probably type 2, 222. I can do that. This, you know, this is probably, without opening up ceilings, I'm gonna guess this is probably a steel building as well. It may be wood framed, hard to tell. Quite honestly, we can open up, take an outlet cover off and look inside. There's an outlet's attached to a stud, right? You can look pretty quickly. Is it wood framed or is it steel studs? That'll give you a pretty good clue of what you're dealing with. And then you can go down through the checklist of NFPA 220 and see what you have for items. On your little chart, you have this stuff. But NFPA 101, 8.2, construction and compartmentation, it's gonna talk about that. So chapter 8, section 2, chapter 8.5, smoke barriers, it's gonna talk about. 8.7, special hazard protection. And then your occupancy chapters, 1.6, your minimum construction requirements. And then your protection from hazards. So let's look at a couple different things. Using the life safety code, NFPA 101. I'm gonna tell you, you have a healthcare occupancy. And I'm the contractor and I want to build a type 5, 111, 3-story healthcare occupancy. Can I do it? Can I build it?
Say that one more time.
Healthcare occupancy, new healthcare occupancy. I'm building it out of wood. And I want it 3 stories. Can I build it? So we already know the occupancy type. So where do I go from there? If I know the occupancy type, new healthcare.
The chapter, corresponding chapter.
Corresponding chapter, what would be the corresponding chapter for new healthcare? 18. Yep. So 18, 1.6, table 1.6. Okay, don't just go to 1.6, but go to the table 1.6, 18.1.6. See, your eyes weren't that big. Are you there? Okay. Everybody there? Those of you who are on link, are you scrolling? Are you getting there? Okay. There you go. Table 18.16, 1.6. 161, okay, to be exact. So I have this is new, so 18, new healthcare occupancy. I have a type 5, okay, so you're looking at your construction type. Okay, type 5. You can do 111, 3 stories. What does 3 stories tell us for a type 5 111? Or type 5 even, for that matter.
Not permitted.
NP, not permitted. So, in order to get that permitted, if I want a 3-story hospital, if I want build a 3-story hospital, the best that I'm gonna get is a type 2, right? But it all depends. Sprinkled or non-sprinkled. Okay, has to be sprinkled. So that is how you find your construction type and whether you can do whatever you wanna do with it. So as a contractor, if I come to you and I say, I wanna build a hospital 3 stories, what can I do? What can I build? How do I have to build it? Well, go down through the list. The only ones that the very first, the lowest one, least amount of structural rating or fire protective rating that you have is a type 2. You can do a type 2 construction. Type 2 what? Type 2, type 2 111?
Springfield. Yes, Springfield.
Yep, you can do a type 2 111, but the only way you're gonna do that is to put a full sprinkler system in there. Otherwise, even that won't work. Okay? Will any of them work without a sprinkler system? No. Okay. We're gonna break for lunch in just a minute, but hey, let's take this a step further. Let's go to a business occupancy. I want to build a 15-story wood frame business occupancy. New, obviously, because I'm building it. So what chapter am I going to?
38.
38, it's new. See, you're all learning. So where am I going in chapter 38 to figure this out? 1.6.
So minimum,
Did that on purpose.
yeah,
Doesn't exist.
So what, is there a table?
no.
No.
There's no table, and the section actually says reserved. So if it's reserved, and there's no table, then there's no requirements. So it doesn't matter. Build it 15 stories, 20 stories, sprinkled, non-sprinkled, that part of it doesn't matter. There is no limitation on the construction type. So if you wanna build it out of wood, steel, glass, metal, masonry, it doesn't matter, because it says reserved. So that's the first. There's other things, okay, that may kick in, other requirements, but going through the first couple of steps, what do you have for an occupancy? What's your construction type? Or from there, what's your minimum construction type that you can have? We figured out at the new business occupancy, our minimum construction type is nothing. There is no minimum. So build it out of whatever you want. NFPA doesn't care if it's a business occupancy. Again, there will be other requirements. You may still have to be required to do sprinklers and fire alarms and, rated stairs and all that stuff. We'll get into that. We'll dig into those weeds a little bit further as we go. But those are the basics. Somebody comes to you and they want to build a building in your municipality. What do you have? What are you building it out of? And can they do it? How many stories? Can they do it? What's the minimum construction type? First basic questions that you need to ask. And then you're on your path to figure out code compliance from there. So we'll practice this and some other things a little bit after, lunch. But let's, do a lunch. I know that there's no delivery today, so people are gonna have to run, do whatever. I'm running straight out to the car, cause I pre-planned. Brought myself a quick sandwich, but, let's try to get back here. I mean, I understand it's gonna take some time to go to the store and grab your stuff. We have to do an hour, we do an hour, but if everybody gets back here a little quicker, we'll get started.